I'm really grateful to the chairman of this committee for calling this. This is an actual area, in fact, this whole subcommittee is an area where there's a lot of bipartisan alignment and a lot of really growing concern as Americans are seeing prices on everything go up. This is not the relegation of any political party. These are trends in many ways that have been going on for too long. About the airline industry, I have to say I'm a very impacted witness as well as the ranking member, because at 6'3" and larger than most Americans, I find our airline seats really inadequate, feeling that pain that many Americans are feeling in addition to a lot of the other challenges with air travel. There's just things folks don't understand. They really can't, and it's understandable the confusion and the frustrations that American consumers are feeling when it comes to airlines. Most Americans don't understand why Google Flights will say that it's cheaper to fly for 10 hours with a stop without a stop instead of a 6-hour nonstop, or why it's cheaper to have a layover in Atlanta when you're flying from Philadelphia to Kansas City when no reasonable person can consider Atlanta on the way. Nowadays, airlines advertise so many different fares and classes, whether it's premium, economy, board first, priority, economic, basic, and they tack on so many fees for everything from taking a bag on board to sitting with your other family members. It is unbelievable. Those fees get labeled as either ancillary or junk fees, and we really believe that, at least I believe, that this is a regulatory question and more. And here's the thing. American passengers spend what seems like a third of their monthly mortgage to fly nowadays. Major airlines that have repeatedly benefited from federal government bailouts now pay less in taxes and pocket more from consumers because of these separate fees customers pay on add-ons that are not taxed, like base airfare. Back when consumers paid an all-in airfare, that tax revenue actually went towards improving airports and improving airport infrastructure. But the system as it was before is not what it is now. And these problems are hurting airline competition and really hurting consumers. And there are more issues than just fees. But let's just say that when the former Secretary Buttigieg initiated rulemaking that would have required airlines to be more transparent about these extra fees, unfortunately that's been rolled back now under the current administration, which is going to make a bad situation far worse. But fees aren't the only thing. Price discrimination or price hikes due to the implementation of AI-based surveillance pricing unfairly targets consumers and takes advantage of their circumstances, like flying solo or having must-go trips where a loved one is ill, or worse, where there's a funeral to attend. If AI-based surveillance pricing, for example, sees a consumer search for funeral home and palliative care, while other searches last-minute couples getaway, the airline could show the grieving traveler higher prices based on their estimated willingness to pay. And that's where we go. That's where we go to low-cost airlines. And it's important that we realize that low-cost airlines have a role to play in the industry, because when low-cost carriers enter the market, we see fundamentally that competition flourishes and prices go down. I remember a moment of honesty with JetBlue when they warned that all that power in the hands of a very few deep-pocketed airlines has implications for consumers in the form of reduced options, high fares, and often poor service. Now, that is really something that is getting worse. Anti-competitive practices seemingly have left Americans with less and less access to air travel. After both 9/11 and COVID-19 pandemics, Congress bailed out the airlines to avoid a collapse of our entire airline industry. Yet, since the pandemic, big airlines have dropped dozens of cities from services, places like Flint, Michigan, and Lincoln, Nebraska. Some cities like Dubuque, Iowa, and Toledo, Ohio, have lost all major carrier service. The capital city of Wyoming, Cheyenne, has lost service on and off over the last decade and has had to guarantee the revenue of a major airline merely to secure regularly scheduled service to a single hub, all through taxpayer dollars. That's just not right. We're going to hear from incredible experts today about rural and mid-sized cities, routes, and connectivity, and how airport hubs don't work, or how airport hubs don't work. But it's clear to me that taxpayers and government have been invested in the success of airlines and airports in America, and we deserve better returns on that investment in the form of efficient, safe, meaningful air choices and competitive pricings. The stakes are really high. Competition is critical for safety and for maintaining and supporting the essential workforce that ensures safety and maintenance. I believe that we have to do more. We must invest in our systems, including addressing our air traffic controller shortage and our infrastructure needs. And it seems like this industry needs capacity, more routes to smaller, mid-sized cities, and a bit of a buffer. This is something we should all be committed to. More staff, bigger seats, and extra aircrafts on standby should be part of this conversation. To weather crises and the natural boom and bust cycles in the market, as well as to prevent bankruptcies and unfair competition that lead to ultimately less meaningful choices for higher airfares for American travelers, is truly at issue. A resilient airline industry is the most important goal here, to keep American carriers competitive around the world and to protect travelers from safety issues that DC locals have been tragically reminded this year could have serious consequences. We have work to do, and competition is at the center of it, and this committee, I'm grateful for, is hopefully going to start finding some solutions. The last thing I want to say is I want to add to these witnesses, it is a big deal when you come and testify before Congress, before the United States Senate. It's also a bit of a sacrifice, leaving your jobs and your families often to come here. Many of you had to fly, and we know how burdensome that can be. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and I will try not to get very upset at Professor Sitaraman because he's an extraordinary guy. I've read his bio, but that hair is very obnoxious to me and the chairman of this committee, sir. I should hold them in contempt of Congress, but I will.
It almost feels like a war crime.
Yes, sir. There was a day that we looked that good.
It's a great point. We really do appreciate you coming here and knowing how busy you all are.